Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, you're live.
All right. I'm going to call the Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting for February 25th to order. Can I have roll call?
Roberts?
Present.
Gray? Topin?
Here.
Ecclesville? Boise?
Here.
Conley?
Here.
DiBenedetto?
Here. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for February 11th?
I move to approve the minutes from February 11th as written.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? Hearing none, can I have roll call?
Roberts?
Aye.
Gray? Topin?
I'll abstain, wasn't here.
Okay. Ecclesville? Boise?
Yes.
Conley?
Yes.
And DiBenedetto?
Yes. All right. Communications from the board and council. Urban Renewal Agency update.
We haven't met since our last meeting, but I think we got an email from our chairs that we're changing our meeting date to the third Monday of the month, if anyone's interested. Instead of originally it was supposed to be the first, but it had drifted to the second.
Now it's officially the third.
In an effort to get everybody there. Other than that, nothing.
Okay, City Council.
I know that Dave mentioned it in the last meeting, but we are reviewing an MOU for a PAR for the ice skating rink to look at the two different locations and get a full assessment of each of those locations. We also approved MOU for disc golf up at Coal Miners Park. Part of that MOU, which I just think would be interesting for planning board to note, is specifically there's two holes that go through public property or like public land or city land, but it's not necessarily city park land. We didn't see any reason not to allow for the disc golf holes to be through that, but we did make a note that in the future, if the city chooses to use that for something else, that we have the ability to relocate them. So just something to note on that. And then also just a request that as we're going through zoning, a reminder, I suppose, about marijuana businesses and just reviewing that. It's becoming a little bit more urgent, as it sounds like they have a buyer and things kind of set up for Beartooth dispensary there behind the bookstore. So just a note.
Okay. County Representative Marty isn't here, so communication from the mayor.
I will just kind of second the reminder that we have that I said those marijuana business. I don't know that it's urgent, but it's one of those things that the sooner we get it taken care of, the better. Council passed an ordinance that said if they move, it opens it up to the big approval process again, is my recollection, which I think will keep them pinned down. But if there's spots that we don't want to be considered, then that's something that this board would need to move on to do that. We did build into that there will not be a disincentive. So if let's take the downtown area, for instance, if they said it wasn't to be in the business district and they were going to move to another area what was there, my recollection is we did build into that ordinance that wouldn't force it open, meaning they wouldn't give up the fact that they have anchored one of those two spots that is allowed. I need to go back and revalidate that, but that was my recollection of the understanding. And this one sounds like they're staying put where they are, so I don't think it's a factor anyway, but just a reminder that is still out there.
Okay. that it?
Did the disc golf include lighting?
Lighting? No. No lighting for disc golf.
I thought I had read somewhere in there. And then I thought, you're gonna play at night? Okay.
I think you may have seen that. I recently think I saw a social post where they wanted to do a glow-in-the-dark disc golf, which I don't know if they got that approved by the city or not. It was not included in the MOU, if that makes any difference. So in terms of hours of operation, I think that that just goes with the same rules as the parks unless they get some sort of special exception. But as of now, city council has not approved that, so.
Okay.
Right, there's no new business. We have two public comment periods. One right now, you can comment on anything that's on the agenda or anything else you want to comment on relative to land use planning and zoning. And we'll have another public comment period after we conduct our review of the zoning update. So I'll open it up for public comment.
A question, is that okay? Just as a review, how many marijuana dispensaries, is it 2 are allowed? Is that in city limits? Is that how that's stated?
I believe so.
And there are no restrictions for central business district or some part of a
No.
specific part of town?
Well, there are restrictions for the different zones. I just don't think it's the business district specifically.
Correct, that one currently is not.
Yeah.
Well, so, what's the answer to my question? They are restricted in certain areas?
2, some zones are restricted, the business district is not one of them. Mr. Chair, I see no comments online.
All right, guess we'll move on to old business, continuing review of the 2025-2026 zoning regulation update. Is Jeremy on or is Connor?
We have Greg on there. I'm just trying to figure out how to put it on here so we can see his face.
Oh, we gotta see old Greg.
Yeah, I'm on Jeremy's at a conference accepting award from the DNRC. So I've got our notes and I think Connor's gonna share it, or I can.
I've made you both co-hosts, so whoever.
Perfect. And Jeff, I had a note that we are starting on section 4.3.91, section B.
That's, yeah, D, historic character.
Building orientation.
Building orientation. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So give Connor a second to catch up, but yeah, you had asked us to, or the board had asked us to come up with some language on that because we were discussing facades facing the primary street versus people accessing from the parking lot. So Jeremy and I came up with just a couple, basically adding a few sentences and rewording a little bit. So basically
Would you
struck
read
that
that
out.
to us since I can't read
Yep,
from here?
yep. Primary building facades and primary pedestrian entrances shall face the adjacent primary street or avenue. On corner lots, the primary pedestrian entrance shall be located on the primary street frontage. Secondary entrances facing parking areas or side streets are permitted. However, a compliant primary entrance shall be provided on the primary street frontage and connected to public sidewalk if available by a direct pedestrian route.
Well, the first thing we notice is that the marijuana business that we were speaking of faces the secondary street, not the primary.
Well, but it's not on the corner, that's just the alley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the street that it's on.
That
But
is
it
a
says
private
that
street.
Yeah, that's,
but it says that the entrance has to be on the primary street.
that would be its primary street, 'cause it's not actually, like, that building, that condo, that unit isn't actually touching Broadway.
The front of it is, it's the
if you think about it, it's a condo, because it's the bookstore,
We've
then
got,
the dispensary, or is it the hair salon, then the dispensary?
Hair
The
salon.
hair salon, yeah.
So
the hair salon and the dispensary are both on the side street.
Mhm. Yep,
So we're not in trouble with that statement?
Mm.
their primary entrance is the only place it can be.
I was gonna say, that's why I was kind of thinking maybe we shouldn't push that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, whatever their primary street frontage is, it doesn't necessarily say it's the adjacent primary. So it doesn't tell you what, if it's a side
Broadway
street,
or
a number
side
or
street.
an avenue, like.
Yeah, a street or an avenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody in there, any other comments about that?
So I do have a question in terms of corner lots. The primary pedestrian entrance shall be located on the primary street frontage. And I apologize if this has been covered, but have we determined how you decide which one's the primary? Not yet?
That's,
I don't think there's a,
Answer, okay with it.
yeah, I don't think there's a, I think that's a definition or some sort of map. Like, I don't know, maybe Dave can speak to it if there's a street classification map in the city of Red Lodge of like what are their, like obviously Broadway is an arterial or principal, and then you've got your local streets, and then, so I think some sort of classification map would help the zoning administrator kind of review, you know, which ones are the primaries and which ones are kind of the secondary or local. I think right now it's just street or avenues are the primaries, and then, um, yeah, like alleys would be secondary.
Well, again, I mean more
Okay.
so like, okay, for
Yeah.
instance, the conditional use we did in front of Napa, deciding which of that is the primary and which is the side. And I feel like generally we try and lean towards what else is happening on that
Yeah.
street. But the argument could be made that like, well, with Napa being front facing on that side, why not have this one front facing on this side? So again, I just
But then
wonder
we
if there's
moved
like
it,
a
yeah.
way to define that, or if we have yet.
Yeah, I think that's the definitions we're cleaning up because I think that was part of that conditional use to where there was some conflicting language about how to interpret where the front lot line setback was. And so like generally you'd want your front setback to be the primary street or avenue. So I think cleaning up the language or the definitions for front setback would help clean up primary streets and avenues as well without a map.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's lots of examples on, in both east and
Yeah.
west of Broadway where there's houses that face a numbered street
Yeah.
that are corner lots, but they face the numbered street, and that's where they're addressed that way.
Yeah, because I feel like there's also a rule that it's the one that has the most actual street frontage.
Yep.
So I guess I'm confused on where
Yeah.
that rule is, and frankly, like, I say let them choose, I don't,
Yeah.
personally, like, because again, it made more sense to me for the one down on Sixth to,
Make it Hagan instead of,
or make it, not
Yeah.
Hagen, Sixth, or Fifth. Is that Fifth there? Fifth or?
well, we
Because-
didn't want Fifth because of the driveway, the setback for the driveway was a
Right.
problem. So
Yeah.
instead, we made sure that the front of that development was on Hagan
Yeah.
because the setback was
There
better.
could be, yeah. So again, I don't have a hard preference left or right, it'd just be nice to have that clear.
It
Sure.
sounds like we'll clean up the definitions wording. Do you have something, Dave?
yeah, from a staff position, and correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that the named ones are the avenues and the numbered ones are the streets. And the problem that we had before is that it did say that it was the most footage of the lot, which worked fine until you combine two lots and then it forced you to face it the wrong direction. And I don't think we were good with it because it made it not match everything else on the block and stick out, was why we were doing it. And so to me, on corner lots, I think that's where, rather than just primary street frontage, it maybe ought to specify the avenue if that's available. Because that takes care of most of it, except for the corner lot that doesn't say it is the avenue. You're back to the square footage thing, or to the linear footage.
And I think we'd rather have everything face the avenues instead of the streets.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
conversation
yeah.
we've had up to this point, was to make it so that where practical, it was the avenue. But then where that says primary street or avenue,
It gets,
if both of them exist, it's the avenue. If there's not an avenue, then it is the street. But where both exist, it's the avenue, not the street.
Okay. So I think maybe if we reword it to say primary building facades and primary entrances shall face the adjacent avenue where applicable. Otherwise, the street frontage would be considered a primary entrance. Something like that. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think, but I mean, I think we've already moved beyond this, but it kind of goes back to lot size. And and Jeremy brought it up, and we kind of skirted by it, but we have a lot of lots that are about half the size of the 7,500-foot lot. They're 3,750.
Yeah.
And I think if that happens to be a corner lot, you've got a very narrow, and I think that's why some of this has been done over on Hagen and Platt and on the other side of Broadway too.
It's kind of why I lean that on corners, just at the discretion of the owner.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really see a reason to decide left or right which way they have their door.
Well,
And I
no,
get where
I-
you have your setback, but like,
yeah.
and
no,
again, I know you guys got into this a little bit with adjacent properties and like where your setbacks should be last week, and
it's because of the setback issue.
yeah, so.
And that's
I
where
guess
it comes into
the
play
one
that-
thing, oh, I was gonna say the one thing I wanted to note was this is for the commercial districts only. So if Connor scrolls up a couple sections, it's the general standards for C1, C2, C3N. So
I didn't get to watch all of the videos, I didn't know where we ended. Sorry.
so which
That's everything.
it could still be applicable because it allows residential, but just want to note that.
I could
So-
live with the word reword, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Move on.
think we ended on
Go
this
ahead, Ju-
section. I think we ended on this section with the rewording because there was some planning board members that, like we were talking about, entering from the parking lots and then, but along Broadway, we want to make sure there's an attractive entrance, so you don't get the alley feeling. That was kind of how do we allow both?
Yeah, the discussion had to do more with the community entrances and the fact that we didn't want the side of the building that's facing Broadway or 212 to look like the back of the building. That was the issue.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings up Family Dollar, which actually doesn't face Broadway.
Yeah. Or, I mean, realistically, the brewery or all of the
Town-
businesses,
Town Pub.
town pumps, I mean, Zip Trip has the front door, but, I mean, Pro Pet is to the side.
Yeah.
No one really has that door on the front because it just creates an extra sidewalk that they essentially have to do from the parking area to
Well, it
the
doesn't make
door.
sense. You'd have to walk around the building to get to the front,
Right,
to get to the Broadway side. That doesn't make
yeah.
logical sense.
I mean, you can always just put a door there and say, this is my primary, but have it locked all the time, I guess.
Well,
A fake door?
Yeah, like, I mean, they're already putting fake windows on buildings, might as well put a fake door too, go for it.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
that doesn't make sense.
Sandy that brought it up though, and, you know, we're looking at going forward, not
Yeah.
retroactively. And when they did the Red Lodge Dental, that building does have Broadway frontage.
Yep.
but there's also back entrance from the parking lot. And I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, that building is literally like the perfect example of
That's what we want.
what you want in every.
And it's a corner, so,
Yeah.
you know, they were able to use the corners
They did a really good job with keeping it
historic.
historic.
So moving on.
Sorry.
Yep.
We didn't have any comments on sidewalks or historic character. Those seemed, unless anyone has comments on those. We did want to
I-
ask. Oh,
I did have a comment on the historic character. Shouldn't we also reference the downtown master plan? It just says Red Lodge revitalization plan.
sure. Do you want to replace it with downtown master plan or reference both?
I would reference both.
I would too.
Okay. So we'll just add and downtown master plan after it. It's a good catch.
That's
Thanks,
the
Jeff.
new one.
Yes.
What-
Should we have the years on those?
And yeah, I think the downtown master plan would be 2025, right?
Right, and do you remember when the Red Lodge revitalization master plan was?
That was
84? No.
I think it was
Okay,
86.
This one?
80,
86. It
86.
went right on that sign.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
all I
Well,
had.
We'll add that in there. So
Oh.
yeah, if we move.
One
If
other
we move-
question I had, and it's the last sentence
Yeah.
that talks about stucco, and I thought we had decided a long time ago that stucco wasn't an appropriate material for.
It's not a historic material.
Right.
And we do have it somewhere else where it says no on stucco.
Yeah, and then in this case it says are considered. It's saying stucco's considered historic materials in Red Lodge, in this Red Lodge district, and I think we want to strike that out, right?
And let it start with,
It's the last sentence.
the entire last sentence.
Yeah.
Do we want to strike it
Because
or
we already
clarify are not considered historic materials?
They are not considered.
Okay.
And maybe we should actually leave it in there with that are not considered historic materials.
Okay.
That way,
Yeah, just
there's
add
no
the not-
question,
yeah.
that way there's no question that stucco is not considered.
Well, I'd like, not to pick nits, but the last paragraph, or last sentence of the first paragraph, giving the zoning administrator the right to waive requirements as they deem, which I just think that's kind of really subjective. And that'll vary with whoever the person is doing it at the time.
Well, what if the expansion's 5%? I mean, there has to be some leeway for
Yeah.
a business owner to expand without having to go through the whole,
Or, I mean, if they want to make it, like, for instance, if you have a building that is not currently
Well,
how you want it to look, so we'll use ProCut as an example, metal sided building, right? And they want to add an additional 5 feet on, adding a brick wall to that, or wood wall to that might look a little funky, but it might be a lot more effective just to do the metal wall that matches.
well, I mean, it's, that's
question.
a good example, but, you know, we just approved, an expansion of the, restaurant downtown, Black Canyon Bistro, into the adjacent space next door.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we end up with a painted 70s exterior.
I don't see how.
We
it's
didn't do a
the
design,
70s
we did not
exterior.
do a design review on
I
that.
know, I think at some point that's probably desirable that we, because that's the only way we're gonna bring the buildings that were brought in downtown that were last modernized 50 years ago, bring them, you know, into an appearance that we would like to see, is if we require something in addition to,
And that's why I think that 20% mark is, and again, if you wanted to lower that, I can understand that, but there is a level or a degree of, you know, again, let the business owners have the opportunity to expand and improve without necessarily breaking their bank account.
yeah, well, that's understandable and appreciable too.
So that's,
It would be, and I mean, right now, we're doing it through grants, which is a great opportunity, so as long as we can continue to get those types of grants.
yeah, that's a great opportunity for them to be able to adapt to this kind of plan.
Right.
But if you're taking it out of pocket and, you know, again, the building that I work in is a stucco building. And so if I have to do an addition and I
Yeah.
have to redo the entire siding of that, not that I own this building, but
Yeah, that's a good point.
like,
Yeah.
and it, you know, I think it looks attractive for the area, and it's actually a fairly historical building, so.
It's one of our historical buildings. It's been there a long time.
So,
And it used to be pink.
I can go back to that. Do you guys want me to? Go back to the historical colors of Red Lodge, if mint chocolate
No,
chip
no,
green and pink?
no, we have colors over at the hardware store that are approved.
Yeah.
Pink is not one of them.
Yeah,
Get rid of mint chocolate chip too.
is everybody okay leaving it at 20%?
Yeah,
I think that 20% is
it's a
reasonable.
good threshold.
And I know that there's gonna be some things left to the zoning administrator.
Yeah, I think,
But it pretty much defines it if it's less than 20%,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
If you're
Yeah, and
building new,
I would say the thing is like when we would look at that, we would look at the section below as the intent of the code. So if they're expanding, you know, a brick building with matching brick material, like that's what the planning board would be reviewing for. So in a design review, so that would be kind of the type of thing. But if they were proposing a steel building, as Chelsea said, you know, we may not feel comfortable just approving that, and that would come to the planning board.
Or T111 makes it, right?
Okay.
are we ready to move on?
We're okay with historic character,
Yeah,
okay?
So on design review, we wanted to see if you wanted to add like 2,000 square foot expansions to kind of match the conditional use cutoff as far as design review. And that's kind of, I guess, mirroring a bit the historic character comment of like if it's less than a 2,000 foot expansion, or do we want to set a threshold?
so just a quick note, Connor, are you or Greg doing the
I'm
update?
doing
Or do we agree that we're gonna say stucco and other similar materials are not considered before we move beyond it?
Yes.
I thought that's what we agreed to.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure Connor caught it, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because otherwise, when we look at this again, we won't. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, great.
Comments, not in the end.
So yeah, I guess the discussion for section E would be whether or not you want to add a threshold for when design review is required as far as the square footage. And have that kind of match section F for non-residential uses, or set a different threshold for expansions.
It says design and plans for all new buildings, blah, blah, blah,
And expansion.
shall be reviewed by the planning board.
Yeah,
And
so
then-
would you
and
want to,
then, it's just all new buildings, period.
That increased gross floor area.
Well, those are two totally separate things.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So it kind of seems like, well, I'm just thinking that there is at least one building downtown that needs to be torn down. And when they get around to doing that, then we definitely want to have a design review. Just because it's going to be a new building, I don't care whether it's 2,000 square feet or not. I certainly don't want to say buildings of 2,000 square feet or above are the only ones that come for a design review. I think all new buildings in the commercial district should come in front of the planning board for design review.
So,
Yeah, I think our intent was saying more of like all new buildings or expansions to existing buildings greater than 2,000 square feet. Or that increase gross floor area by greater than 2,000 square feet. So like all new buildings would still be reviewed, but there's a threshold for expansions.
Well, we already say that the expansion is less than 20%. Can avoid that. So if the expansion is 80% or above 20%,
so what he's saying is if you have an expansion that's
2,000 square feet.
2,000 or more, you would go in, but what you're saying is you still want an expansion, even if it's an expansion of 500 square feet, say that is still more than 20%, say that they're,
I just don't think that you can mix percentages with square footage. And that's where I'm having the problem.
I think he's just trying to have it include the 2,000 in case it is, to have it match the conditional uses.
So if there is a building that is 1,200 square feet and they're going to expand it more than 20%, but it's still under 2,000 square feet, that should come in front of the design review.
You think so?
Yeah, if it's more than 20% of the building that they're going to expand. But some of these buildings, especially on Broadway, are 1,200 square feet.
Yeah, they're little.
So I just think that mixing a solid 2,000 square feet with a percentage is a recipe for disaster.
Sure. So I guess the flip side of that argument would be if we jump to section F and kind of looked at these side by side, would you want to change that from 2,000 to 20%? Because I guess that's kind of, it's like in one case, it's 20% is kind of your cutoff where the zoning administrator may do this. But then we go to the other one and it's 2,000 square feet, which may be like 1,500 square feet, maybe a 50% increase, and that one actually come in front of the planning board for a conditional use permit.
Yeah, regardless of the square footage, it's more than 20%. So if the expansion is more than 20%, it needs to come in front of the planning and zoning.
Yeah, so would
If
you
it's
want the
more than
same
20%.
would you want the same thing for the conditional uses then, where it's more than 20%? I guess design review is a percentage threshold. Conditional use is a square footage threshold.
Yeah, this is design review. This section is design review. So
He's trying to say that if you're gonna have it in design review, you should also have it in conditional use. Or vice versa.
Just to like have consistency in how we're looking
I've
at
always
it for
separated those separate things. Conditional use versus the actual physical building. So those are two separate things. I don't think you can mix them. Sometimes we have a design review without a conditional use. Sometimes we have conditional use without a design review.
Well, more so, when should it trigger a review?
Right.
Yeah.
More than
And-
20%
yeah,
expansion.
regardless of what the review is.
It's either P or C. It's either gonna be permitted or conditional. And I just, I understand what Sandy's saying, and I'm just trying to visualize in my mind various properties, and, for instance, where the bead shop used to be.
Yeah.
If, you couldn't put a 2,000 square foot building on that lot. But
Well, yes, you
sure make a lot-
could.
you
There's
make a lot of
zero
changes.
setbacks in the front.
Well, and two-story, but it could be remodeled a lot before that would kick in, is what I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say, is if you think that we need to have it for the design review, why not have it also for the additional, or for conditional use?
Well, all conditional uses, regardless of the size, come in front of us.
So non-residential uses, allowed conditional uses that propose to expand the gross floor area by 2,000 feet or more are required to comply with 4.410.
Oh, you're under non-residential uses. I'm at design review.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to, I'm gonna let Greg say what he wants to say, because I just don't think that, I think we're all confused on what you're trying to do here, Greg.
Yeah, so I guess the intent of the comment was like at some point the city decided, hey, we're gonna have a threshold for expansions that on conditional uses that need to come before the planning board. So we just wanted to check to make sure that you don't want a similar threshold, which I see what Sandy's saying where we may waive it when it's 20%. But that's also, I'd say that's a tougher thing to feel comfortable waiving black and white just because design review just has that touch of subjectivity to it. Like if they say they're using materials colors, you know, that would check the box or should check the box for the zoning administrator, but that may be a different interpretation for the board on wanting to see it, to look at it in more detail. So we just want to make sure that, hey, you didn't want thresholds on design review expansions outside of a percentage, like some square footage. And if you don't, I think it's fine how it is too.
When reading that non-residential uses, the second paragraph says when the expansion is less than 2,000 square feet, the zoning administrator may waive the conditional use permit. And I don't think that's a fact. And standards of general applicability, requirements such as a waiver is deemed to be consistent. I don't think that a conditional use permit is ever waived,
Well,
regardless of the square footage. But is that true or not?
2,000 square feet is a pretty good sized structure.
Yeah,
I mean, my house isn't that large.
but I'm just saying that I don't think that the zoning administrator ever waives a conditional use permit
I think especially in that circumstance, I don't,
under any
No,
circumstances.
So we pulled that from your regs, but I think the intent with that is you're saying if you expand it by more than 2,000 feet, you have to get a conditional use permit. However, if it's less than 2,000 square feet, you can waive that basically additional conditional use permit you're requiring.
Well, that's assuming that the expansion is going to be used differently than the original building. In other words, if the original building is, I don't know, something that has already got a conditional use permit, and then they expand it, why would they have to go in for another conditional use permit? And I guess in that instance, it would be waived because I would assume that the first conditional use permit also applies to the expansion. So let's say the marijuana dispensary, okay? They want to expand, and they're going to expand really big, to say the least. They already have a conditional use permit for the marijuana dispensary.
right.
Why would they have to apply again just because it's over 2,000 square feet?
And I
They
think
wouldn't.
that's, yeah, and I think
Is that where
that's
you
the,
were thinking?
I think there was an
Well,
intent behind this. That was one question we had, because I think what Sandy's saying, if it's a new conditional use, like no matter what, that would have to get its own conditional use permit, regardless if this section was here or not. Anytime you add a
Right.
new conditional use, you have to come before the planning board.
Right.
Greg, I have a question. Is there a way,
Is there a way to do this?
is there a way to, I mean, 'cause I think when we're looking especially downtown along Broadway, we have a lot of buildings. We have two issues. We have frontage, which is Broadway frontage, and then, you know, look at the Naughty Pine or Red Lodge Cafe or where Junction 7's little mailbox thing is. there's a ton of room behind those buildings back before you get to, maximum setback. Or, you're starting to infringe on setback. Do we really care if they want to make those buildings larger backwards where nobody can see it? Other than meeting other requirements?
I think honestly,
If the frontage isn't being altered, and I guess that's kind of what I'm leaning towards, is if the street frontage itself isn't impacted.
if you've already gotten the conditional use, I don't see why you should have to do it again just because you're growing.
Yeah, it doesn't make
You
any
still have
sense.
to follow the rules
And I
of
understand,
that original use.
so,
You still have to follow the rules of the zoning. So again, I don't think there should be a reason to have to reapply.
so the statement, when said expansion is less than 2,000 square feet, the zoning administrator may waive the conditional use of, regardless of the square footage. If they already have a conditional use, then they have a conditional use for the building, the entire
Yeah.
building, including expansion.
Yep.
And if they're
This is-
proposing a new one, they have to get a conditional use anyways. So the only thing you'd be waiving is that second conditional use for expanding their original conditional use.
I think we're having trouble with expansions versus new building. And maybe it should be separated completely instead of trying to work them both in to, like, design review, both new and expansion. Those are two separate entities.
Okay, what if we said design and plans for all new buildings shall be reviewed by the planning board and zoning commission pursuant to the requirements of building design section, and then say all expansions to existing buildings that increase gross floor area shall be reviewed,
More,
just to have two
more
very
than 20%.
clear, more than
Yeah, I like
20%.
the 20.
Yeah.
I like that better than the 2,000.
If the expansion is more than 20%.
All expansions
And that-
greater
and
than
you don't
20%.
Yeah, you don't have to say that last sentence the way it is. If the expansion's more than 20%, then it needs to come to design review.
Yep. So the interpretation
they
of that would be when Brian comes to us or Brian looks at it, if it's an 18% increase, he's just gonna process it and just want to make sure
Right.
everyone's okay with that.
Yeah. It doesn't trigger the design review till it's more than 20%.
Okay. So we'll delete that last sentence then, Connor. Then we'll clean that first one up to remove, just do a period after buildings. And delete some wording. No. The first sentence. But we'll keep moving. I got notes on it. So
So we're, just to make sure I have this clarified, is what we're saying is all new buildings will have design review, right?
correct.
And that, but if it's an existing building with existing conditional use, if the expansion is greater than 20%, then okay,
It'll trigger a design review, but not a conditional use.
right.
And to confirm, this is just the commercial district, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Downtown historic commercial district.
It-
I do not want this like
It-
golf course. Like,
I noticed
design
you've
review
got
every damn thing.
sign packages as part of secondary and tertiary uses crossed out.
Yeah, we don't need to
Yeah,
have that
so-
here.
So our thought on that is I think we had the discussion regarding like in the and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's discussion in the use table about not specifying as much if it's a secondary or tertiary and having signs just reviewed as outdoor advertising. So if they're subject to design review, they come to design review. versus
Yeah.
saying, hey, just because you're doing a secondary use that may be permitted, um, like, so if you have a permitted secondary use, do you really want the sign that under outdoor advertising could just be reviewed by the zoning administrator? Do you really want that coming to design review? Because they still have a
Yeah,
total square footage requirement and all that.
Well, I guess my question, and this kind of gets to, I'm going to talk about casinos, I guess. Casinos are tertiary use in the community entrances. So if somebody applies for a casino in the community entrance, it's a tertiary use. Their primary use might be a restaurant or some other use. What's to prevent them from having their sign being the larger of the sign, basically being a large sign, and the primary use of the building being a smaller sign?
and oh, by the way,
Do we
What's
have
that?
video,
casino and restaurant.
do we
Yeah.
have video sign restrictions?
Well, what if we just said, sign
That-
packages are subject to design review?
Yeah.
Take out the, secondary and tertiary, just that sign packages are subject to design review. And make it simple.
That's fine with me, yeah. I'm just thinking about these
So maybe
towns
like
you
sign
go to.
packages or signs for buildings with multiple uses. Or I'm just trying to think how to word it. Because you don't want every sign to come to design review, do you? Like even if it's a single use.
Yes, actually.
That's what it says, right?
Isn't that the truth, Jeff? We want,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
sign packages are subject to design review because,
So does this have to be detailed here, or is this something that's detailed in outdoor signage? So is it all signs or just is it just the commercial district?
well, all signs would be. But this is under design review, under commercial district.
So if you guys truly are wanting to do all signs, just keep that in your outdoor signage. Doesn't need to be here. It's gonna say design reviews required down there. If you just want it for the commercial district, which that to me makes sense, then say, yeah, all the stuff in the commercial district, we're going to require review. All the stuff that happens 2 blocks off the commercial district doesn't necessarily need review because we have rules in place for it. We're doing that review right now, correct? So like, why don't we just set the rules and not have to have a review for every damn thing and potentially set us up with subject issues?
We have signs now that don't require a review if they're under.
A certain amount of square footage.
So again, if you want
Yeah,
to.
so
But in
this-
the downtown,
Yeah.
but
This would
I think
be
in our historic,
So a good example, I guess, is the bistro. Now they acquired or they expanded next door.
To the casino, right?
So what's to prevent them from basically putting a sign that across the entire front, as long as it meets our sign
Square
review that
footage.
says casino?
and restaurant.
Why are we mad that it says casino?
Well, we're thinking in terms of it's not a primary use, it's secondary to the restaurant.
I'm just saying, like, do we need to tell them how to advertise for their casino and their restaurant if they're following the rules of how it should look? Like,
that's
Spelled out elsewhere.
That's what I'm getting at, is in terms of, what I'm trying to avoid is that we end up with community entrances like these other towns that have, you look down and you see casino, 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 casino. And the rest of their business is secondary, or, I mean, that's the thing that I think we're trying to get around or get away from when we said for the community entrances, casinos were tertiary to other uses, and we didn't want the casino sign to dominate what the advertising was for that business. If it's a tertiary use, it should be smaller in scale than the primary and secondary use is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe we detail that in our signage area where we talk about signage in general instead of trying to deal with it.
Right.
But
Because this is all
a,
commercial districts. It's
this
not
is a historic commercial district.
um,
The commercial district standards.
Oh, we're under historic, no.
It doesn't say historic.
They're,
This is just
So
all
again,
commercial
All
districts.
yeah,
All commercial.
yeah.
and
I still think that all the signs should come to design review. All sign
Yeah, and it looks
packages.
like, I think Perry pointed it out, now that I reread it, that was Jeremy's recommendation, is just have, instead of because the tough part with secondary or tertiary is
We
establishing
don't,
like existing proposed, like obviously you can see the signs, but what happens when you get in the fourth, fifth, sixth sign? Like technically the way that's written, we may not be able to have those come to design review. That could be the loophole a casino finds in Jeff's example, is they'll make their second and third something else.
So what you're saying, Greg, is that we'll keep the wording that sign packages are subject to design review. That's what we're saying? Okay.
I think based on your concerns, I think that's the simplest way to keep it pretty black and white for everybody.
Okay. Dave?
I was gonna say, right now, so there's a permit and it talks about what's allowed, but when you get down to 4650 in the existing, it just says that there's a sign permit, but then for secondary and tertiary use, all secondary and tertiary conditional use permits are required to submit their advertising package as part of a design review. So that's what it is right now, it's just secondary and tertiary.
Okay.
Because, like I said, I just know from an observation standpoint that there's a lot of signs that come in, it's like, it's a square footage, and yep, you can put your sign up on the side of base that says you have Stoll Tools now, and that doesn't come here as long as it meets the guidelines and requirements.
including colors and,
That's set out in the signs where it talks about neons and
Flashing.
yeah, and so it talks about, there's all sorts of definitions and things that are there, but right now, that's basically there's some of those that are permitted and they don't require this unless they're secondary or tertiary.
And again, if you have all your rules to make it, again, an attractive sign, there's not a reason that you should have to review it every time unless you just really want to take on casino.
But what it does, what I see there is it does address Jeff's concern in that if you set a casino up as a secondary or tertiary use in the entrances, now you have where it's going to come here before you do a design.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a secondary sign, it's a secondary use. It has to be a tertiary sign, it's a tertiary use.
well, they have to be secondary uses anyway, because you can't get a casino license without a
No,
bar.
and that's what I'm saying, but this keeps by bringing it in here, you have gas and casino, it's not casino, oh, and you can buy gas.
Yeah. And so we're covered.
Well, the existing word, that's how it's covered in the additional, is that if it's a secondary and tertiary conditional use, it does require a sign review, but not everything does.
That's not in this section we're talking about, though. That's somewhere else, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
But
down
it's
in
about
sign
signs.
4.6. So
Okay.
They have what, like,
and also, I mean, you guys can change what it is, but there was some debate about what we have right now, and you were saying they all come here, and I'm going, no, I don't think so.
They come here if they're gonna be a lit sign, I think, or neon.
Definitely
But
anything
if
like that.
it's just a plain sign, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that just,
That just had, like Magpie,
Right.
didn't come in front of us.
They're Beartooth Bucks and, you know.
yeah.
But then, one thing that we might consider is what they could do with that and so in our sign section, it's not like we want a neon pink sign with black lettering.
What if that's their brand? What if that's the business? Like, what if that's what they literally want to be? I don't know, that just, I feel like we don't wanna get too nitpicky with people's, it's okay for me to have rules and regulations for size requirements, brightness, all of that, but when you start trying to brand a business,
I would hate to see that downtown.
yeah, I mean, well then, buy the business and just let them be there. I don't know what to tell you, like, there's gonna be business, I don't like Moni's sign, there's certain signs I don't like, but like, end of the day, it's not my choice to be there.
Well, they don't distract me as I'm driving down Broadway.
Some of them do.
Oh, look.
Yeah, so again, it's just, and that's the whole point, right? It's supposed to get your attention, that's what signage is for. So again, that's my concern, is just like, I'm not trying to be someone's brand manager.
Well, I think we've got the appropriate language, it sounds like, to, if they're talking about signs that are lit, that's covered under our sign.
Because there's another one that says, neon signs, have a design review. You know, so there's two or three things in there that, where it does do that it's a design review, but I remember from my time on planning board too, that conversations where it sounded like we were starting to get into artistic designers. Well, I don't think it's pretty, and
It's not our choice to say that.
Well, it's challenging too, because we have businesses that have been on Broadway for, you know, more than 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And they have great signs, and actually they're part of downtown.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, do you want a business to open up right next door that's sign actually you know, if you go back to historic character, that you want to take away from the historic character of what's already there with new signage, you know, so.
Well, we already did that with the Naughty, because they wanted it to be perpendicular to the building in neon.
Mhm.
And we felt that it
Needs to
was
be on the front.
interfering with the teepee, with the
Yep.
cafe. The neon signs things are probably gonna come up again, because you have to imagine if every single business on Broadway had a neon sign.
Well, yeah, our dark skies.
Well, I don't care about the dark skies, I just
Well-
care about it looking like Las Vegas.
Well, but we do already have dark skies requirement.
They
Protection.
don't emit enough light,
If you get enough of them
Uh,
together. it'll-
but you're only doing them one at a time.
Yeah,
So,
Well,
at some point, we
yeah,
need
yeah.
to consider
yeah.
whether or not to cut off the neon signs at some point, or make them only for the building, or we need to consider that. Something we can think
Yep,
when we get to that,
Yeah, I
like
think,
next year.
I think,
great.
Yeah.
We have to look forward to.
Well, think about it.
well, I think you make a good point, Sandy, about, I mean, if we're gonna maintain the historic character of the downtown, there's a certain characters of signs that are appropriate. You can have all, and it can look like lodge anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it kind of defeats the purpose of building design
right,
standards, clutter it all up with a bunch of other stuff, so.
And to quote something that Jeff has said multiple times, while I hear that we don't want to be their brand manager, there actually is a portion of this board's duty that is determining what the look is going to be,
Well,
what
our
the
brand,
character is
yeah.
going to be. Yeah, our brand is a
Yeah.
good way to put it. And so that's, how do we keep your brand from interfering with our brand? There's the fuzzy line.
So here's the thing, is make it not fuzzy, put rules. That's all I
Yeah.
care about, is don't have a design review, and go, I don't like hot pink.
No, you gotta have.
You gotta have this color. It's gotta be clear, defined,
Yeah.
and at that point, why do you necessarily need to have the design review against what
Right.
we're doing now?
Yeah, because that review protects our brand.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
And again, I more and more I think about the amount of reviews and conditions and those types of pieces, you start to go down a scary path of when you start setting these rules and regulations and running it very consistently, it sets the city up for liabilities
Yeah.
as well, so.
can't be capricious or subjective.
Exactly, so just things to, again, be very conscientious in those decisions. We say we want to review it, and we have it set in a rule versus set in the review.
are we to move on?
Sure. So I guess just to, if Clark can scroll up, just to close the loop on F, I want to see, so do we want to strike basically the intent of the way we read it now is if there's an expansion on an existing conditional use permit, then they need to basically get a second one unless it's less than 2,000 square feet. To go back to Sandy's point earlier, that would be an expansion of an existing permit. So we could remove it because all new conditional uses will come before the planning board to begin with.
You wanna go to percentage, stay with the percentage of we have of, or?
I don't think that an expansion to conditional use permit, because it's not a change of use.
I don't think there needs to be.
You can say it any way you want it, but it isn't a change of use, so the original,
Yes, not new construction.
yeah, it's not new construction, it's the same.
What if, somebody wanted to expand a 5,000 square foot building to 10,000 square feet?
You mean like the corner of 14th and Broadway?
And double the size, add a story, okay? Why would the conditional use change? As long as the use is the same, it shouldn't, regardless of the size of the expansion. They already have a conditional use permit. If,
They have room.
Yeah.
yeah, they haven't changed the use.
As long, yeah.
They've only changed the size.
Well, and if it was a new use of that space, it would require.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, you're already gonna get a chance to do the design review on it, so in terms of the aesthetic, you'll have that opportunity. You just don't have to, I don't see why, I agree with you, Sandy.
She agrees with me.
That's a big note right there. I agree with something.
Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah, they'd still have to comply with parking. So if they increase it, increase employees or head count or whatever the count is based off of as part of the expansion, they would need to be compliant with zoning. So they'd have to add more parking spaces, for example. Um, but yeah, I think Jeremy and I have talked about this one before, and we were curious on the reasoning behind it, since it already has a conditional use permit. Not that it's right or wrong one way or another, it's just do you wanna review expansions for conditional use?
No.
I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. If the expansion causes, as long as there's requirements elsewhere in zoning that if the expansion is large enough that it's going to increase the need for additional employee parking or customer parking, then they'll still have to meet that requirement in order to expand.
That's a design review. Being the design review.
Design review would be the the sections to comply with all these standards. So we would look at it for whatever's listed for those districts. So whatever is part of that section's design review. But yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll take a note and make sure basically like, hey Jeremy, do these all still have to comply with standards of general applicability? Because that's where parking and hillside developments and all that stuff is outlined, and just verify that it doesn't change that. But I'm pretty sure.
That's why.
I was just gonna say I'm pretty sure that no matter what, they have to comply with that as part of their zoning permit.
I think thinking way back when we put this 2,000 square foot threshold in, it had to do with some of the whether to be able to ensure that the impacts of that expansion are considered in terms of parking and the other requirements that's basically the rationale, I think, that we had. I mean, the question that came before us is, do you want to review all conditional uses expansions, and the thought at the board at the time was, well, we want some large expansions to come before the board, and that became the rationale for setting the threshold at 2,000 square feet. But if the impacts of that expansion are covered elsewhere, then yeah, I agree, we may not need this sentence in there. That's the only comment that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, is a question, so is there the situation that the original conditional use would no longer be allowed because it's bigger? I guess that would be where this makes sense to me. So for instance, you have a 500 square foot casino that now turns into a 3,000 square foot casino. You might not want that. You're like, I was okay with it at 500 square foot, but I'm not okay with it at 3,000 square foot. That was too big.
So basically, your tertiary use has become your.
And I'm not thinking so much tertiary or anything
Well, just
like
by
that,
size
but
alone,
sure,
yeah.
yeah. I think more so, we made this, when we first looked at this conditional use, we approved it because it seemed small, it wasn't offensive, it wasn't a nuisance. Now that it's growing, it could become a nuisance. It could become an issue. So like, that's where, now that you said that part, it kind of clicked why this existed and why you would want to review that conditional use again and essentially approve it to continue forward, because it does change at a certain size. So
But the use never changes.
the use doesn't change,
The use
but you
never
might
changes.
not allow that use if it's so much bigger. So,
Or you might not allow the expansion.
yeah.
The impact to the community is what changes.
Yeah. So even though, so for instance, again, I have a tea shop, we'll call it a coffee shop. I have a coffee shop. I like to use the coffee shop example because I love coffee. But I have my 500 square foot coffee shop. I want it to be a 3,000 square foot coffee shop. But in the back, I'm also like, it's still going to be a coffee shop, but the smell's going to become a lot more aggressive. Or it's a grocery store, and now I need all these more refrigeration units, so it's going to become louder. Or I have an auto shop, and now I'm going to have more obnoxious looking, like, dead cars on Broadway, there on the corner of 14th and Broadway. So that becomes where it was okay when you have one or two vehicles here, now it's becoming a whole Walmart version of it. That's the only difference I see. It's like, and again, this goes against my core, as you all know.
I was gonna say, that restricts, here's a guy who pulled a conditional use permit, and he did really well.
Yeah.
And he wants to expand, and you're saying, well, it was okay when you were little, but now that you're bigger, sorry.
Oh, no, personally, I would approve it, for sure, but.
Yeah. Well, it would have.
But I'm just saying,
What
I'm
we're-
trying to make that a clear point of why this existed in the first place.
What we're saying here is that if you expand beyond 2,000 square feet, then that comes before the board. If you're going to expand from 2,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet with the same use, but you're going to have more impact.
That it may affect your conditional use permit.
Yeah. It may affect.
Good luck on
Well-
writing that one up,
Well,
Greg.
it's not going to affect the conditional use. It's still the conditional use stays the same, but what it seems like it would affect would be whether we would allow the expansion or
Yeah.
not.
You have to, if you want to expand, you have to move.
Yeah.
Or you'd have to prove why it's still reasonable for you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, that's the thing too, okay, I have a 3,000 square foot coffee shop, we find that isn't offensive in any way. Good on you for having a 3,000 square foot coffee shop, there's so many varieties. And hopefully that's the answer every time, in Chelsea's perfect world, that we always allow it and we always expand, but again, that would be this is me playing my own devil's advocate here.
So maybe to reword it and simplify it, knowing the intent, and I think it makes sense, is if there's additional impacts, you may want to require additional mitigation measures. Maybe we could remove the word allowed up front and just say conditional uses that propose to expand gross floor area by 2,000 square feet or more are required to comply with that section and obtain a new conditional use permit. And then that way
Or just a review of their conditional.
Review's not strong enough. Because you can
Yeah.
review it, but that's not, Yeah.
Yeah, so I was
Have
poking
you-
around on other municipalities, and a lot of them either call it a new, like they have to go get a new conditional use permit, or they can amend, or some municipalities call them a CUP amendment. So
Oh, I like that.
basically, and then we would spell out that basically it's a re-review of your conditional use permit with a new layout, and the planning board may add additional conditions of approval or something like that.
Like that.
yeah, I like adding more conditions of approval as opposed to revoking the
Yeah.
conditional
Oh,
use
yeah, no,
permit.
no revoke.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that they know that it's not going to get revoked.
Yeah, no, you just might have some
It
additional.
might
things to
add
comply.
more conditions.
Yep.
I'll go with more conditions.
So obtain an amended conditional use permit or something like that.
Like that.
Okay,
I like
Yeah.
that a lot. Okay.
that it may trigger that.
It may, yeah.
May, doesn't,
That doesn't necessarily have to, though.
but it may. Boy,
Okay.
are we moving along or what?
Precious. Sorry, welcome back, Chelsea. We're gonna go one page at a time again.
That's right, you were done.
That's why it was so fast.
Okay. Well, yeah, and we'll have Jeremy check that out too, the wording, and just see if there's any things he thinks we should add to it as well.
Yeah, did you understand whereas the how we came up with this historically, and then Chelsea kind of clarified some of the other things that I was thinking. I guess I didn't come to mind, but
Yeah,
that's
no,
the
it makes
rationale.
a lot of sense. I think it was just the way we were interpreting it. It was more about getting a new or another conditional use, but after the examples, it makes sense. So
Okay.
Yeah, if we're good with that, I guess did you still want to leave the option for the zoning administrator based on if it's less than 2,000 square feet? Or if they expand it 2,000, have it come in for basically an amendment hearing.
You need to have them waive it, like, or can it just be automatically waived, auto waived when it's less than 2,000? Like, you don't need to do anything in addition unless it's over 2,000.
Yeah, it is or it isn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
We
it's less than 2,000, the zoning administrator could waive the amendment of the conditional use permit.
I just don't think there even needs to be like a may waive or not. I think it's already just, if it's less.
makes the decision.
Yeah, it's just done, like, you don't have to, there's no additional requirements unless it's over 2,000.
So you get rid of the last sentence and just say, if it's over 2,000 square feet, it may trigger an amendment to the conditional use
Exactly.
permit.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, don't stress it, calm down.
Yeah, I think we'd
Like-
want to have like either leave that last sentence or get rid of it completely. Because otherwise we're leaving a little subjectivity, and I think we'd rather have them spelled out so if someone looked at it, they could call up and we could even clarify. Because yeah, it says they can waive it if it's in line with the standards of general applicability. So if they expand it and they show, hey, we're increasing head count and increasing parking, we can say, okay, that's in line with your impact, you're mitigating it, we're good. Versus if outsider who wants to expand looks at it, they won't know if it triggers it, and there's no way for the zoning administrator to really know what triggers it. By saying conditional uses that propose to expand an area by more than 2,000 square feet or more are required or may need to are required to comply with section 4410 and may need to obtain an amended conditional use of permit. Versus that last sentence spells it out a little better for the zoning administrator on what we're reviewing it against.
I believe the last sentence.
So I'm a little bit confused, Greg. Are you saying to strike the last sentence, but then you were saying you wanted a little bit more clarification wording? So are you
Yeah, I
saying
would
strike
say-
that last or keep it?
I would say put it back in if all we're gonna say is 2,000 feet or more, you need to obtain an amended conditional use permit. If you want us to have the threshold to say, in the cases of less than 2,000, we can waive it. So yeah, I would say have it like that, as long as you want the zoning administrator to have the ability to waive it.
Yeah, that's fine.
But as long as they still meet because you added something that they would still have to demonstrate or show that they meet the standards of general applicability and the conditional uses, right?
Yeah, so if it's less than 2,000, the zoning administrator may waive conditional use permit and standards of general applicability requirements when such waiver is deemed consistent with the code.
They may waive additional conditions
Hmm.
of the CUP.
Yeah,
They're not
it's
gonna
confusing.
waive the conditional,
Oh, I see what you're saying. So that, yeah,
yeah, they're
let's-
not gonna waive permit.
yeah, we're not gonna waive the zoning standards. May waive the
Additional conditions.
yeah. Yeah, I'll give Jeremy a call tomorrow and we'll talk through the wording for sure on it. But I think something along those lines that Connor just typed is kind of what you're looking for.
Does that look good? Okay, I can move on, Greg.
On to the next one. We didn't have any comments on so these are district specific. So this first section is just C1. So these are standards for that district only. Didn't have any comments on, is that letter I? No changes there. Our first comment is on letter II. I guess, is that the threshold you want, and do you want it for those 4 uses specifically, or
Well,
just kind of curious where the square
yeah,
footage
I
came
was-
from?
I guess Jeremy and I are on the same page, because if somebody's gonna come up with something other than retail, restaurant, medical, professional for a commercial purpose, and we haven't excluded that. So I think you just need to say, commercial structures or,
Structures.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm thinking about C1, and there's not a whole lot of space to go more than 5,000 square foot on it. So, I mean, there's not a lot of,
I know, but
yeah. So,
Like I say,
I just think, yeah, structures, I don't know.
well, I guess, so thinking of those lots, unless, I suppose someone could just knock down an entire block of houses and decide to,
Well,
well,
they could buy multiple adjacent houses,
what
yeah.
about Scoops and they own that whole Scoops and store where I guess Bob is. Yeah,
yeah,
and it goes all the way back.
I don't think
That's-
it's 5,000 square foot though.
It's 2-story.
2 stories. Right back,
I think
yeah.
it's 5,000 square.
Oh,
feet.
absolutely.
2,500 feet times two is 5,000 square feet.
Oh,
There's no
5,000 square feet?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how math works.
easily, easily.
I
I
guess,
just wasn't sure how big, just didn't feel that
And
big
that,
in there.
and that building is,
Yeah, but that's C4, I think, aren't we, we're just on C1 right now, so,
So,
Oh, that
I
is-
guess,
talking about neighborhood wise, yeah,
okay,
I
you're,
just think
that's
having
C4.
those specific businesses is kind of weird.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm saying
C1.
you're just, oh, like, if you wanna fill your block, or like, fill your lot, but like, otherwise, or don't include a particular business, just no structure shall exceed 5,000 square foot.
Well, you know, like, there's a lot across from Roosevelt to
No,
Savonier, and I think that may have just sold.
It
But,
did.
Yeah, so, like, that's a good sized lot, it can be.
and that's the thing, I don't necessarily mind a 5,000 square foot building. going
No, I'm
around.
not saying it's a bad thing, I just don't, but we've been very specific as to what you,
So can we just strike that whole bit? You good with that?
I'd be good with that.
I'm cool with that.
I guess so this kind of circles back, I don't know, how fresh it is, but we talked about like an impervious, like maximum lot coverage. So that would take care of it. So basically, if you had a 5,000 square foot lot, you have to meet your setbacks. You can't have more than 50% coverage. But like, yeah, specifying uses, like they're allowed uses in the district. So if you don't want them there, they shouldn't be an allowed use. But as far as the building size, if they meet setbacks, I guess it would be a little non-typical to see a cap to the business side if it meets setbacks, unless you have a maximum impervious coverage.
How dare you have a large restaurant? Yeah, I'd say just get rid of that whole thing.
Okay.
It would still come in front of design review.
It's still coming from the design review,
That's
and
true.
you know, like,
And we don't see a lot of it, but we will in the future see.
Hunter, I think you can just delete all of two.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think there's any
I-
reason to,
does that sound right, Jeff? Considering C1, as we know, is a kind of a weird
and again, just
zoning district.
if you're meeting your setbacks and your heights and all that, I don't think anyone will be able to hit past 5,000, but if
Okay,
they
well,
can, good for them, but.
Let's think about this too. In the C1 district is the,
North-
What's the name of that?
North Broadway.
what's the name of that decrepit old,
Oh, the hotel, the Lupine?
no,
Oh.
the one on Broadway that has applied to FEMA. to
Oh,
be-
Eagles Nest.
Eagles
Eagles
Nest.
Yeah, that's
That,
floodplain,
that's right. It can never be built there anyway.
right?
Yeah, and then, again, you could have a 5,000 square foot building there that looks awesome. And, I mean, it could look just like the dentist, you know, our
Yeah,
favorite
if they
building.
decided to sell it to a developer as opposed to FEMA.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I'm looking at C1, and it's basically Eagles Nest, it doesn't even include the Lupine,
No, it doesn't.
and it goes up to 15th, so it doesn't include the other block. Or
And then
does it?
there's the one, the
Yeah,
block
that
that,
would.
the half a block next to the, where the Mexican restaurant is. That's a C1 too, on that side of the street only.
Yeah. And then there's, I guess, the name of the geotech or
Yeah.
Link,
yeah,
GeoLink.
GeoLink. So like if they were to knock down that building, you could potentially hit 5,000 there, but like, that'd be it. Again, I think we have enough guardrails throughout the zoning to not necessarily have to block off.
We have to
activity.
have review.
Yeah. It's already gonna get reviewed at a certain size, and again, you can have a big building look good.
Look at the dentist office,
Yeah, it's the best building in town.
the newest.
It's so nice.
So are we okay with striking I? Okay,
Okay. Strike that out.
Can we go
so-
back up to I a little bit? I just had
Yep.
I was gonna suggest in that first sentence, to add maintain the historical residential character. Where it
So,
says maintaining the residential character, I was gonna insert the historical residential character.
okay. Yeah, so
Everybody
no,
okay
no
with that?
comment,
I think, good add.
no
And the
comments on
reason,
section.
the reason I say that is a lot of those are kind of old homes
Quite
and
a few.
kind of represent what Red Lodge used to be a little bit, or that transition from residential to the core central business district, so.
Well, I addresses that too, in that it shall have architectural elements compatible with the residential appearance.
But it says a residential appearance, where
Yeah.
C1 is a commercial district.
I know,
So it has to look like a residential?
that's
kind
what
of
it does, so. I was reading it.
I mean, that's kind of something I was thinking of too. So again, you have the Yodeler. I don't really think that looks like a house, but,
Pretty big one.
and again, it's also the exception to the rule, right?
Right,
Like,
what do you want, not what you have.
yeah, and again, like, if you were to,
GeoLink doesn't fit in any category, so.
so say the flood comes back, wipes out all those buildings down south of town, and then something new gets built, would you
Right.
necessarily want it all to be residential, or would you want to potentially expand the commercial district? So is it just, what if it's just historical?
I think the idea is that all of C1 are basically homes,
Sure. Okay.
and that's why we would want any commercial to look like a residential
Okay.
building, just because of the nature of that particular zone.
And they all have setbacks,
They all have
front
setbacks.
setbacks, whereas the central business district has
None,
zero setbacks, so you wanna maintain that.
that look.
Yeah, I think as we were doing the, up top where we were going through the different uses, I think we were very careful with C1 to make sure we weren't putting uses that were not compatible with that, with what this says.
Okay.
All right, move on.
Yeah, so section 3I, we just added the clarification statement that I think we used in another section previously of metal storage containers are not permitted to be used for primary uses, accessory uses, or ADUs. And that's kind of just carry forth the issue that was had previously. Or not
Okay.
wanting those. So that was the only thing there. Moving on to C2. Didn't have anything on the first section, which is basically just describing the zoning district, purpose and intent. So 2I, kind of the same comment as above of, I guess, would you want to remove this one too? Or,
I would.
Yeah.
'cause I think all three of those types of structures are all conditional uses. So we'll strike that out. Item 3, same thing, just clarifying the metal storage containers. So,
Oh, see,
do you have something, Jeff?
No, go ahead,
Okay,
that was fine. I
so
had
that's all we
something
had.
on the next,
Okay,
I had comment on the next section, but
go back to C2. Sorry, I gotta pull my map up, make sure I'm talking. Yeah. I mean, not that it's unattractive, but, you know, back behind Boyd's where the new Samurai Fu is, it's got a metal building and it doesn't look very residential to me. But
It went through conditional use,
No, I'm
And-
not saying it's a bad thing, but I just think maybe that the residential appearance in that area is,
Yeah, I'm less worried about it there. Again, you do have a lot of garages and shops, like again, you have Northwest Energy, that's an
Yeah.
entire block of shop. You have
Right.
Napa, it's all metal buildings. Again, I think there's several buildings throughout, but there's a few homes that are less than residential. I mean, what's that one on the corner, that big red barn style one that kind of tucked in the trees a little bit? Looks good, like, I think it looks good, but
yeah, there's some shops and stuff back
Yeah.
in there, it's just,
I don't have any issue with it being,
no, but in, you know, 3I, that's the one where it comes back and says, existing buildings or conversion of existing buildings shall have architectural elements compatible with the residential appearance. Criteria for evaluating residential appearance include but are not limited to size and placement of windows and doors, building materials and site design. Buildings resembling large storage sheds, pole barns, or other outbuildings are not allowed. I mean, that's what all the new construction in that area has been.
Yeah, but we're not zoning for what has been.
No, I realize that, but,
That goes back again to that large pole barn that was built for storage.
yeah.
And that's why we have this section in here to,
But this is C2, not one.
well, that was
Well,
the.
you're right.
And the intent, I mean, the intent here is that it's a mix of residential. It's not 100% commercial, it's mixed commercial,
And
residential.
Yeah.
So you wanna have buildings that are compatible with that, and that's why that wording is in there, is.
And that these are the only two sections that have that wording. So the next few commercial districts don't have that wording. Just to clarify
So-
that.
criteria for evaluating, I think you guys got into this a little bit last time, so I'm not gonna try and open up a can of worms too hard. But that criteria for evaluating residential appearance, is that something that we have a little bit more clearly defined?
Well, that's part of I guess that's why I brought it up, Chelsea, is, I mean, yes, I know we're looking at going forward, but these buildings that were recently built were approved under this current standard.
Right.
You know, so there's obviously, there's some wiggle room.
Not that pole barn.
No, not that one.
Pole
but
barn,
some of the
but
others.
Samurai
Yeah.
Foods was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, again, I think it looks good,
Okay.
so I agree with you that my thought is for these more residential mixed areas, that having a more residential appearance is appropriate. But again, going back to the point of we should have the criteria of how to define that, and I don't know if that's something that WWC has, like, a little brochure that we could hand out. But that's kind of and I know that's something that we have, is that in our growth policy, how we wanted to have essentially like a design packet to where it's like, this is the rules and criteria to follow. And I love that idea. Again, I'm all about just setting those clear expectations at the gate.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to have this in our zoning unless we have those expectations.
Most of North Cooper and North Haven the majority of them are R4. And maybe, you know, I think as far as C2, that there is not a lot in C2 that is purely residential.
No, I mean, I feel like people have really utilized that C2 district to be that off-street commercial district that we don't really have otherwise. Because like realistically, there's a lot of businesses that don't necessarily need Broadway access, but really do need more of a quiet space with more affordable parking and a little bit easier to work on and have traffic coming in and out of. In a more,
Light traffic, yeah.
less, in a smaller capacity, to where it's like, versus you don't really want to be wasting a Main Street business.
You'd rather have like Boyd's where it is than on Broadway.
Exactly, exactly. So again, I think that being too strict on that residential appearance when this really is kind of like our mini industrial district that's intermingled. Because again, I think about driving around through there, you have the old milk barn, you have
We
Northwest
could lose
Energy,
that.
you have Napa, you have gas station, you have all the little apartments, like it's kind of this weird eclectic, you have the storage areas, all very necessary pieces in the community, but in its own little funky neighborhood. And most of the things within that neighborhood are newer in terms of like actual Red Lodge timeline, because before it was all train tracks.
Yeah.
So like most of the buildings that are actually back there were either shipped in from Bear Creek or built in the last 50 years.
New for Red Lodge.
New for Red Lodge. So,
It's because it was an undeveloped area.
yeah.
I'm kind of torn on this. I don't want to have an industrial area
Yeah.
there. I mean, where everything is industrial. And the residential appearance, you're right. What's the definition of that? It looks like a house until you go in.
Yeah.
To me, that's, windows and a stoop and, a
Roof
roof
lines.
and not made out of metal.
And that's the thing, like, I think a lot of homes, and I think they're made out of metal. Like, it just depends on, again, it's subjective, right? Going back to that piece, so.
Well, they can't use it here.
You can use it up at the golf course, though, and again, I'm not trying to open that can of worms again. I started watching the video and had to go do something else, but I know that was a point of, not contention, but just discussion. And to me, again, I'm not necessarily saying make it an industrial district, but also it is nice to have that commercial mixed space. And it doesn't necessarily have to have so much of that residential appearance, it just has to be friendly.
Well, I guess in a way, I feel like we're kind of, this is where we're picking on, the Bryans of the world, because they have to be able, we're not given a real clear criterion on making a decision.
Yeah, and so again, I'd say either one way or the other is be a little bit more flexible in what you're allowing there, or really provide clear and concise rules.
Here's the real question. What do we want that district to look like in 30 years, 50 years? What do we want it to look like?
He's like, I don't care.
I mean, really, that's what we're doing. When you're doing the zoning, you're trying to think ahead of the time that, this building will be gone and that building will be gone and they'll be doing. Are we identifying this area as light industrial? Is that what we're doing? Or are we going to keep it where it's a little bit of both? Or basically push out the residences and turn it light industrial?
And honestly, I don't think necessarily pushing out
I mean, as time goes on, you sell, you buy two
Right.
houses next to each other and you decide, okay, I'm gonna build a.
Well, what I honestly see it being is more of a contemporary neighborhood in terms of just like having more apartments and having that expanded. So you have a lot of R4 around the C2. So
Yeah,
you have kind of that more modern contemporary space where you can have that higher density mixed in with that commercial space, to where I think really that becomes its own little district in a regard. It's not gonna be like the new downtown by any means, but it's gonna have a very high purpose and high serving function. And a lot of that is because it's mixed use, to where you can have, one, the high density with multiple apartments and some more modern aesthetic that's more affordable, while also having, I think your residential could shift to be a more of a business style Polisano look.
So I'm thinking.
So again, you can maintain that residential, but your view of residential changes versus the historic Red Lodge piece that we focus on and feature throughout a lot of the community. That becomes a more contemporary part of the neighborhood. Because that's the other thing too, you think about Red Lodge, you can see the different periods, and it's cool to be able to actually not necessarily, or like to try and build off of that contemporary vibe, and also creating that opportunity for affordability. Because this is where I see an affordable neighborhood, where you can have some of the more modern materials being utilized that can be a lot more affordable than brick. So we think about the new places that are going in, again, people want to use metal because it's cheaper than using most other materials. So instead of necessarily saying, no, we want you to try and look like this other place, and now it's an underdeveloped and underserved population, we could actually be like, no, we want you to really run with this, do it well, and then we have a more affordable option and also an ability to build up some of our other businesses as well that can provide a little bit more flexibility as well as variety in our business sources and funding sources for the community too, which is important. So it's not just tourism, restaurants, and shops. You can actually have some business of artisan crafts and architect firms or contracting firms, or, you know, it could even be an IT startup that starts small and becomes half of a block when, you know, Marie and them decide they want to retire. Because again, we're talking 30 years from now.
So is your suggestion to do away with the materials requesting?
I kind of think so, yeah. Like, that would be,
So
or
they could be
just-
barn-dominiums and pole barns and
it could be like a big industrial space. I mean, I think about
metal
even,
storage containers?
yeah, I mean, it's already there. And it could, you can do it well if you lean into it. And you provide the space for it. And then again, it keeps it out of some of your more historic districts. But again, I know what's in C2 and up in that R4 area. There's a lot of double wides that could be going away. There's some vacant lots.
Yeah.
So now you can go big with some, I don't want to scare everyone with the word big, but like, you can build up some nice apartments
Yep.
that do have a kind of, depending on your aesthetic, it'd be ugly to some, but it's going to be attractive to others. And it's going to be really attractive to the people that can afford to live there. So that's my big spiel. I'm done now. So, yeah.
So I was just looking online too, and there's probably 7 or 8 things that you could do to kind of make. There's a lot of ways to do it. Like you could either do hard yeses or nos, or you could do a point system. Probably the easiest way is yeses and nos, but it's like, what do you want the roofs to look like? Like, what do you want the window glazing or percentage of the front to look like so it can meet that commercial use, but also look residential, limiting like garage locations or frontage, like how big the garages can be on front loads. Those sorts of things can be used to evaluate residential appearance.
I mean,
If
we're trying
if you
to
wanted-
encourage affordable housing. So,
And again, it could really tie in with the community entrance north, where if you think about a lot of these rejuvenated areas within other communities, and you see industrial buildings that have been turned into residentials and lofts and art galleries, and there's really cool ways that you can bring in the aesthetic of both, and it also does encourage affordability. So it's just something to consider. If there's a district to do it, I feel like C2 is the one. Again, you don't want to be doing it in C1. You don't want to be doing it on our historic Main Street. But like, if you want to be able to keep it downtown, like in the valley section, not necessarily up at the golf course, that seems like the most appropriate section of town to do it.
And not in our community entrance,
What's that?
and not in the community entrances.
right.
Yeah, it's tucked. It's a tucked community, but it's, again, it can be a new era of Red Lodge, because again, you go through and you can see decade after decade throughout our community. It's not all just 1915.
Well,
And it could be the next FinTown, but.
Well, I mean, yeah, we don't wanna look backwards, but if you look at what's already existing in that area, that putting a quaint residential style structure in there actually is out of place.
Right.
You know, for the most part. I mean, there are some there, but they're outnumbered by the other structures.
Yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge of, and again, a lot of that's old coal miner houses. It's the affordable apartments that were put in there before. Like, we got a bunch of these weird, you go to the one building, I was just driving by it off of, is that Third or Fourth, where that modern building just past the gym right there as it jumps onto Hagen, like,
Yeah,
they
that's-
just remodeled it, like,
That's in C2.
and
But
so, yeah, that's, again, it's got that crazy modern aesthetic to it.
But then you get to the little, some of them are townhomes, some of them are apartments, those are on Hagen, and
Yep.
that's our fourth.
Yeah, and you look at the places on, the condos on Brewery Hill, the townhouses right there below the high school, and that's a lot of metal, that's a lot of wood, it's taller industrial spaces with smaller setbacks. So again, you kind of think about that contemporary design when you're rolling through there. Just a thought.
Yeah, and the brewer, and the cannery.
Yeah, and that's it, it's like, there's ways to intermingle those things, so.
So what are we gonna do here? Are we going to strike the criteria for evaluating residential appearance sentence? Is that what people are saying?
I'd kind of like to drive through that area and take another look at it before
Okay.
I go one way or another. I'm not over there all the time, so I haven't seen it lately, and I'd kind of like to take a look at it before and what is it, 2nd through 7th? And it's only, I guess,
Yeah, that's the thing, it's not much of a space, but when you also think about the R4 around it and being close to the high school and just some of the zoning opportunities there.
Well, how open are we to, because like that block just south of Napa, there's 3 homes and vacant land.
Which has already been approved for apartment complex.
across from Napa.
Well, that's on the other, that's to the east, I'm talking about due south from Napa.
Due south from Napa is where it is.
Oh, is that where that is? Okay,
Yeah, okay.
that lot there on the.
Yeah, but
corner.
then, as you're
Okay.
saying, right there to the east, there's another vacant lot and a couple
Well,
of tiny old coal
But does
miner
that need
homes,
to stay in C2, or could that go into R2? I mean,
or R4.
or R4, I mean, because you've got such a mixture down in that part of town.
That's why I'd kind of like to drive through it and take
Yeah.
a really good look, know that I'm in C2,
Yeah,
and
this is where the map gets
Because-
really,
Let's just get some.
I'm gonna have to blow this up a little bit more.
Yeah.
yeah, the map gets really choppy there.
Yeah.
Can you make a note that we'll come back and look at this paragraph, Greg?
I got it
Yep.
in there, Jeff.
And there's that block of Bonner between,
The weird Bonner,
yeah, right behind the fitness center.
yeah.
One of the things worth mentioning, other than the time and to look for a good cutoff spot, is that Jeremy had pointed out that somebody kind of mentioned about switching the zoning like there. Part of the changes that the legislature made last session to help encourage and facilitate housing, the changing of the zoning map or changing the map areas is a billion times easier than it used to be.
Mhm.
It's not 47, I think it's a resolution and you're done,
Well,
so.
yeah, and there's some areas on the map that just made sense at one point in time, but
Yeah.
I guess,
they still do.
I guess my reservation is, to me, it's, I like the idea of mixed commercial, residential, but I don't want to go all the way that we convert this area into commercial.
No, I don't think
Not
that's the
existing
intent.
residential, yeah.
So how we word this to kind of draw that balance, I guess, is what
Yeah, I understand.
Your zoning district, you know, specialized into this particular type of thing that you want.
Yeah, I think if we were just to edit this how it is, I think I would just take out the space where it says the barn and the shed and all that, not allowed, I would just take that out.
Well,
And
And it looks like
that's the
residential.
section that I think,
you wanna keep.
Yeah.
That's
because otherwise we'll get a pole barn.
Well, and again, I think
I mean,
that-
for storage, and that's not the best use in this. It's either for a business, should either be for a business or it should be for residential. Because
But not storage.
Not storage, yeah.
Well, and again, I kind of go to a business could be operating out of a pole barn or shed aesthetic. And again, it's all depending on what you feel that aesthetic is, and that's where the definition comes in. So again, having that residential appearance and having that criteria, I think is fine, but just removing the buildings resembling a large storage shed, pole barn, or outbuildings are not allowed, have that more so cleaned up within your criteria of what a residential building looks like. So instead of saying that's not allowed, tell them this is what it is.
You know what,
This is what is allowed.
woman to all of those, the storage shed, the pole barn, and the, all of those, is that there are no windows in any of those.
Pole barns have windows and doors and all of those things.
Well,
Think of the
storage
house
sheds
over
and-
here that got the pole barn clause added, it has lots of windows.
Yeah.
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 Again, just windows and doors don't make it look residential to me. It's, residential is, again, subjective, so that's the problem. Again, I think that's where it needs to be. Instead of saying you can't do X, it should be, this is what it should look like. Like, this is what is needed and required. And it's not just windows and doors and like metal siding. It's, okay, I don't know. I don't know how to define it. I don't have that definition. Like, I was hoping that like Connor had it. He'd just bring it out. Like, here's your notebook.
Pull it out of your back
Yeah.
pocket.
So again, as Greg was saying, he's got a metric and a criteria for it, or that there's ways that we can do it. So I think maybe
Yeah.
moving that direction versus saying the storage shed bit, because again, I can make that argument all day that, okay, I want to live in a pole barn, and I've met people that have turned really nice pole barns and barndominiums in, and I'd rather live in those than some of the crappy houses up at the golf course. So it's just, again, it's all subjective.
Even the realtors have now got a whole section of barndominiums. So there is this movement towards a house that looks like a barn.
Yeah, there's a massive barndominium on Cole Drive,
Yeah,
up the golf course.
yeah. So
That's just it.
we have to look at those and say, is that okay? Even though it's metal, it's
Well, and then there's,
a resident.
you know, there, on Silvergate, there's, I can't remember what it's called, they're adjacent to the apartments we improved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not my aesthetic,
Yeah, it's
But
not
it-
your bad, but
but
it's somebody else's.
somebody else's, you know, so.
I mean, if I could, I'd live in a hobbit town, but
I,
that's not
I
an
think,
option.
I think what got this was when that pole barn went up for storage on the same block that was set aside to provide housing.
And they put a little apartment upstairs.
Well,
Housing.
it didn't even go through us.
No, it didn't have to,
It
yeah.
was approved by the building inspector. It said that as long as you make 800 square feet inside this livable, I'll approve it.
And it looks like a resident, I mean, that's the challenge.
No, it didn't
You
have
wanna
to
help the
look.
building inspector.
And
out.
that is why
This is here.
we
Right.
got into this paragraph, was to make sure that that didn't get repeated and that the building inspector understood that anything like that needed to, either was not allowed or it had to come before the planning board.
And whatever we allow there, just think is the whole block made up of those.
Yeah.
And that's really the criteria. Do we want the whole block to be nothing but barndominiums? Do we want?
Well, in this case, it was this huge blocky structure.
Yeah,
30-some feet tall, no windows.
Yeah.
Right next door to
That's
a
all.
single-story house.
Just get rid of that house, how dare it be there? Sorry.
So you've got a row of,
So that's the balance that we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah.
But it's now 7:25, so this looks like a good place to stop. So when we start, we'll be doing, Community Entrance North, right?
With a couple of
Yep.
callbacks to that last section after people have driven through it.
Or-
With a couple of callbacks
Right.
just after paragraph.
Right.
Yeah, C2 triple I.
Or we could call it Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2.
That's way too much.
Triple I.
Triple I. I'm just gonna call it 3.
All right. Open it up for public comment. Any-
Nothing?
I see no comment online, Mr. Chair.
All right. Written correspondence, staff communication, and updates.
We have a design review public hearing on March 25th for that new garage along, I think it's 424 North Broadway Avenue. So we're working on the staff report and notices right now. And then we are doing a completeness review on the Spire subdivision, and Jeremy will send that out tomorrow, and then we'll be in sufficiency review, which could take some time depending on how sufficient the information is. So those are kind of the two outstanding things right now.
Okay. And then the other thing is, first meeting in March, we're supposed to have nominations and elections of officers. So that needs to be on the agenda too.
Do you want that that'll go under new business, most likely?
Yes. Yes.
Can't we do like other elections, and if there's no opposition, you just get reappointed?
That will be the discussion.
That's an option, but that happens next meeting.
You don't get to do that now.
Any petitions, communications from the audience?
None online, Mr. Chair.
All right, adjourn.
Yay.
Did you enjoy?
Thank you.